welcome. Thank you so much for joining my webinar. My name is Annie O'Sullivan with the Premier Home Experts team of 54 Realty. And I really appreciate you jumping on here to get these facts, and I will keep this as short and concise as possible. But again, thank you so much for coming on. Really quickly, just for a little bit of like housekeeping and let you guys know, over here on my right side, so the left side of your screen, it's my partner, James, and what he's going to be doing is he's going to be looking at the chat and the Q&A. So if there's any problems, things like that, yep, there he is. So while I'm talking, because again, I don't want to waste too much of your time, he's going to actually be informing me and kind of stopping me. So if there's anything you guys have questions about, you can just go ahead and chime in, put it in there, and we will gladly elaborate through any of that. If not, we are just going to get rolling through this. And again, I appreciate your time. So I'm not going to sit here and spend a ton of time about myself. There's videos about that. We can always talk about that later. We are going to get right into it. So I'm going to share my screen and talk about exactly what to expect while we are going through. All right. Selling your home in the year 2020 with everything that else is going on. So hopefully on your screen you should see a giant blue and white says 2020 home selling new game plan. James just gave me the thumbs up, so yes, that's what you guys are seeing. So this is what I'm going to be going through. As we go through this, basically COVID kind of threw a monkey wrench into everybody's plans. There was no kind of basis or background for kind of dealing with a pandemic that was a public health crisis. Everything that we've kind of experienced before in real estate and housing in general was always based on financial issues, things like that, businesses. So this was like an entirely new system, and this is why it became so important and imperative for us to be able to bring this to you. What we found out is we were running across the same very kind of common questions, and we just didn't want you guys to feel like everything that you're experiencing when it comes to selling your home should be based on sensational news highlights and things going on through the market. Always, when you're dealing with a large asset such as your home, we're talking about probably one of the most biggest assets you have, and you need to look at this from a very fresh financial perspective and objectively, looking at the facts and not basing decisions on fear. So that's actually why this whole thing came about. So the first thing, right, to give you a synopsis really quick, there's 4 items that we are going to be discussing today. Number 1 is how to actually time the sale of your home right now, we don't have a stay-at-home order. We do have, the facial mask kind of in play right now. Number 2, selling your home in as-is condition and making sure you are not leaving any money on the table. Number 3, specific ads your realtor should be running that actually work to produce results of getting you sold. And finally, how to negotiate with the 3 types of buyers that we have out there right now. So first and foremost, most importantly, would be how do you time the sale to take advantage of the market that we have going on right now? And again, your goal should be making educated decisions based on facts and not fear. And there's a great quote that I love, and it was called, "Truth is attainable by laying fact upon fact." And that was by Peter Can. He was a former publisher of the Wall Street Journal. And so what we're going to do is we're actually going to take different aspects of what our industry is, so you can really see exactly what you should be looking at and what to be paying attention to really maximize your home sale. Now, the first thing we have here, Zillow actually researched or paneled a bunch of economists. Now, these are people a lot smarter than me. They're going through data that I can't even imagine. And when Zillow reached out to him and was like, hey, based on everything you're seeing, what should we expect to be going through our next recession? Real estate's always been in cycles. We've been on this huge upswing for quite a bit of time. So, it's natural that you're going to have like these up and down waves. And that's when they polled them to get an idea of what it looked like. Now on this chart, you can see specifically, a few said, last year, clearly that didn't happen. And then a majority of them though said, hey, 2020 is the year that we should be anticipating kind of the beginning stages of heading into a recession. Now, majority of them, as you see, 19% right over here, said Q3. We're in June right now, so just to imagine that that's when we're anticipating the first phases of what to expect. with the recession. And then, of course, 10% said, the end of this year. And then there's a fair amount, see 28, 34% actually said next year we should be anticipating going into our next recession. So then naturally, when I mention recessions, everybody starts panicking, saying, oh my word, recession means housing prices are just going to be decimated. I'm going to lose all my equity. What should I do? How is that going to affect me? So again, let's look at just different factors and see what it was like. So historically speaking, when we looked at the last 5 recessions our country has gone through, as you can see, out of the 5, 3 of them actually had zero effect negatively on your equity and home pricing. Now that's huge. The only one, I mean, there was one in 1991, it was only 1.9%. But realistically, when we're looking at this, only one recession had tremendous impact, and that was, of course, in 2008. And that was the big one, the big crash. Everybody, the housing bubble burst. I'm sure you may have heard of that as well. But overall, historically speaking, when it comes to recessions, we don't have a huge, massive loss of equity. So that's good news for you. Now, because I just mentioned it, I did say a dirty word. It was recession. And so normally when I bring that up and, anticipate and say, hey, these things are going to be forecasted for you, what should you be looking at? The next question I normally get is, okay, well.
We just got one right on cue.
Oh,
Someone just asked, is the same thing going to happen next year?
yeah, exactly what James just said. The next question I normally get is, oh my word, are we going to have a crash like in 2008 then? Because that was very recent, it's very fresh. Most of us went through that in some form or fashion. So what I did was I actually dove into this a little bit deeper, because what happened in 2008 was much more like a perfect storm of a lot of different factors having to click and fall right into place in order for that calamity to happen the way it did. So we're going to actually break out those pieces so we can see, are those same things trending similar fashion in today 2020 as they were in 2008. So the first part that we're going to take a look at, as you see with this chart, it's the mortgage credit availability index. That's just a really fancy way of saying, how easy was it to get loans? For right now, seeing the housing bubble, the peak of it was back right in 2006, and that number was actually 868.7. And that's meaning, the higher the number, the easier it was to get money to buy a house. Right now, actually, as of today, we're at 181.3. So this is a good indicator in terms of when we're looking at, how stringent lenders are being, how comfortable are they with, easily lending money and things like that. I mean, you can see it right here. It's very clear as day that we are not following the same kind of facts and patterns as we were in 2008. And I want to apologize up front right now. I will try to make this as entertaining as possible. However, as you can see, we are going to go through a lot of numbers, a lot of data, and I will try to make this, entertaining, but, there is some of this. Please deal with me on that one.
Hey, no. So, no, not a question, but I just wanted to chime in. I'm sure you guys can hear me. Sorry you can't see me. I just want to let you know, to Annie's point that she just made, I just talked to one of our preferred lenders today, and he's great. He knows everything. He told me the lending restrictions have gotten tight again here in the area because of COVID round 2. He told me that if you don't have a 620 credit score or higher, it's going to be very tough. So I just wanted to throw that out there, Annie, because I don't know if you heard that news today.
Yeah, actually I did.
Okay.
So essentially, in case you didn't completely hear, if it wasn't clear enough for you, what James was talking about, we were speaking with our lender directly. He's our partner that we kind of go through. Yeah, we literally talk to him every day. And we specifically asked, like, hey, what's going on with housing, lending, like where are the criteria and everything. Lenders are actually getting a lot stricter with what they're doing. They basically aren't the days, and you may have heard about this, where people could actually tell the bank how much money they made, and the bank would be like, sure, we believe you, that's fine. That's over. They don't do that. It's now double checked, triple checked, even quadruple checked between the time you initially reach out to a lender and the time that you can get keys for a house. They are going through literally piece by piece of every little bit of your financial history to verify, are you qualified? Are you going to be responsible for being able to buy a house before they lend you that money? So this is actually a great indicator, because right off the bat, we are seeing we are not matching the same patterns. The very next factor to take a look at in terms of like what would cause a crash would be the percent of median income needed to purchase a price that was, median price. This is essentially saying, how much of someone's paycheck on a monthly basis was going to their mortgage. Back in 2006, literally a quarter of their money that they had available was going to that. When you start factoring in, transportation, cost of living expenses, things like that, that is exceptionally high. That's when you may have heard people living paycheck to paycheck. They didn't really have a lot of savings going up for them, things like that. Where as of today, right now, with the current rates, with the current pricing of homes, people on average are only spending about 15.5%. That's a huge difference because that's 10% of their income that they are able to store away for savings to improve their home, as investments. So there's a lot more capital there. So now section 2 of what caused the housing crisis in 2008, we are not matching. So that is, again, great news for us. Now, the next piece of the puzzle that kind of went into 2008 was the amount of equity people were cashing out. You may have heard people at the time, they had 100,000, 200, even $300,000 worth of equity, and they took it out and they bought themselves items with it, where it could be cars, boats, new TVs, additions to their home, things like that. So back in 05, 06, 07, the years prior to our housing collapse, we had a total of 824 billion, that's billion with a B, that actually was pulled out of homes and used for other things. I mean, some of it was fun, some of it was practical, paying out their debts, who knows. But the point was that that's a lot of money that came out of homes. Now, looking into what we're dealing with now, the 3 years prior to 2020, we're not even close to that. We're at 232 billion. So don't let the bees part fool you as far as billions, because in relation to each other and everything like that, again, people are leaving equity in their homes. They're comfortable with where they're at. They're not pulling it out, using it willy-nilly, kind of thing like that. So that's another piece of that puzzle that we're not mirror and matching as we were back in 2008, which, again, good news. Now, this one I really do enjoy and everything. This part was probably one of my more favorite slides. I just mentioned a minute ago, a lot of people are leaving equity in their homes. Well, if you can imagine it, 53.8% have at least 50% or more equity in their homes. So you think of their home value, they're saying, for easy math, if their home was worth $100,000, they have at least $50,000 worth of equity sitting in that home. Which means if you're running into situations, things like that, you're not about to walk away from that kind of, that's just your money, that's your investment, because that's your equity. See, tremendous amount of equity. We have 37% of all homes right now are owned free and clear, meaning there is absolutely no mortgage on their home. And 26.7% have, again, the 50% of equity, and that's it. So again, totaling it out, 53.8%. So almost half of America has quite a bit of equity. They're sitting on a nice, sound financial asset for themselves, and that's really great when you're looking at long-term investments. So when we're looking at this, again, people are sitting on their equity. It's a lot harder if you want to imagine someone walking away from a home when they have over 50% equity in it. And that's not likely to happen because they would just lose it. It would disappear. So the next aspect that we always see and hear about, if you look at this, is, okay, well, all the news has been talking about recently, especially even more recent now, is the job losses. And what's occurring right now. Week after week, it's, millions of people are filing for unemployment. What's going on with that? Because clearly if they're unemployed, they won't be able to pay bills, hence mortgages, things are going to start falling apart. Foreclosures and short sales were a very predominant aspect of our housing market in 2008. I remember going down streets and it was almost, one block you would have one house that was owner occupied, and then one would be vacant. It could have been vacant for a couple of years because it was a foreclosed property. That's something that happened because of what was going on during that time. So let's take a look at what's happening now to see, are we mirror and matching that same kind of issues to expect that same kind of result. So Goldman Sachs went through, did their unemployment rate and what their projections were, And granted, because of everything that's happening right now, it is high. It's extremely high. We've been kind of floating by. We were in like the 3 to 4%, which, as a country as a whole, that is phenomenal. So to go from that to jump up to 15%, that's a sting. Not gonna admit it. Now, the most interesting part of that, though, is that not only like you have this blip, but how quickly do you recover? Like, how quickly are those people that were unemployed able to get back to work? Now, this is one of those things when we look at it, we want to understand that yes, you're going to have this huge drop or kind of spike going, but then how quickly do we curve and recover out of that? And what everybody's anticipating is that this isn't going to be something where they talk about like U-shaped curve, V-shaped curves, things like that. This is definitely more of a V-shape where they're not going to sit there at the bottom for a long period of time and then finally round back up. They're actually anticipating that this is going to be much more of a V shape where it's literally we're going to spike down, but then we are going to jump back up fairly quickly. 2008 was not that at all. 2008, excuse me, was much more of the U shape where we dropped, we kind of stayed down there, and it took a very long time for us to come back up. And then, of course, the projections, that we're going to drop to like half of where we're currently at by next year, and then it's slowly going to just keep dropping from there. Another fantastic indicator that we really should be looking at from an industry standpoint. And it's, for me, I always do want to look at it because this is what I do. So, for being able to support my family and things like that, I always want to be on ahead of projections and kind of where we're at from a market standpoint. But as a homeowner, you can get a good gauge easily by just paying attention to this one aspect. So the housing sector enters this recession, excuse me, underbuilt rather than being overbuilt. That is a complete 180 than we were in 2008. And this is coming from Robert Dietz, and he's a chief economist for the National Association of Home Builders. These are people and companies that are massive, millions of dollars that they are funneling into our economy. And their whole business model is based on if people are able to afford and buy homes. That's their sector. So for them, this means the economy rebounds, which it will at some point, housing is set to lead the way out. And if new home builders are banking and saying we are good, this is strong, and that they're moving forward with their aggressive plans for building out their homes, that's a really good sign for you that you should be paying attention to. And again, that's completely different than what we were experiencing in 2008. And finally, thank you. I appreciate it because you've been dealing with all these charts and graphs with me. This is the last one, I promise. This one basically has, how all the major financial institutions are anticipating our recovery to look like going through COVID and everything like that, which, I mean, this has been pretty much spot on. Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, these are people dealing not with billions of dollars, but trillions of dollars. I mean, there's so many zeros in their numbers, it's ridiculous. And all of them, with all their smart research analysts, things like that, everybody's been predicting the same thing that I just mentioned about a V-shaped recovery going through COVID. And all of them are saying, we are going to be bouncing out of this very well and very quickly. So I hope you think that is great. And ultimately, when we're looking at all those different pieces, we have the new home builders. How are they responding to this? We have how are the lenders responding to this? We're looking at how equity looks like. None of those factors matched up with how 2008 came out. So, looking at the facts, looking at the data, that it does not make sense to be assuming that what we are going to be experiencing is the same kind of crash as what we had in 2008. So, yay for us. Don't mind. I want to have some fun with this too. But again, it's all about finding the facts so that way you can make an educated decision. And right now, you are very good. It's very strong, and stay with that. So, what are we really expecting now with this after, we were kind of at home for a little while and where this surge is coming from? Ultimately, there is going to be three truths that are going to be remaining. Interest rates have been historically low. It's been phenomenal. The amount of people getting interest for a 30-year fixed mortgage, and they're 3%, between 3 and 4%. I mean, that's amazing. I'm thoroughly jealous right now about that. But I think it's a great thing to want to do. So people want to take advantage of that. Number two, we still overall as a nation have a housing shortage, which means because of this demand with the interest rates, people want to invest in houses. They know it's a smart investment. They know in the long term it's going to be better for them financially, and they're just out there trying to get homes, and we do not have enough supply to actually provide them with that. So we have this shortage going on. And of course, number three of these truths is that, there's not enough houses to meet the buyer demand. So in terms of timing and what that looks like for you, those are like magic words you really do want to see and hear. Just that experience where there are more people wanting to buy your house than there are other homes on the market. So in terms of timing, that's all fantastic, and that's actually what you want to see.
We've got a question kind of sort of similar to that. It
Yeah.
said, with the second resurgence of COVID here locally, where we are in the Tampa Bay area of Florida,
Mm-hmm.
and now that masks are being required everywhere, is it still feasible to sell your home in the next 6 months?
Ooh, it's a really great question. Okay, so James brought up one of the questions that was brought to his attention was, right now we are dealing with, having we don't have a stay-at-home order, but we are required to wear masks out. Everyone's being extremely cautious again. So, is it really feasible to anticipate being able to sell your home in the next 6 months? And the answer to that is yes. The main reason being is because, smart agents like us, we've been utilizing a lot of advanced technologies for quite a while now, and it really came to fruition during COVID. For example, 3D home tours, video home tours. And I'm not talking about virtual where it's literally like a slideshow presentation of pictures. What I'm talking about is literally a camera being set up where you, as the consumer, can see it online. You can actually move your mouse around and it'll point the camera in that direction so you can actually see it. And that's been extremely vital and actually really a positive thing for our homes and being able to sell them. Because one, it's a safety feature for, both your sellers and buyers. But two, the convenience factor has been amazing. We've had a huge response to people just loving that idea of being able to tour homes from the comfort of their own home, where they can sit, relax, they could do it on their own time when it's convenient for them. And all of a sudden, they're able to really get a good sense of like floor plans, layouts, the lighting of a home, things like that. So we're not seeing actually any declines on that. And from a local standpoint, just to give you an idea, even with the masks and things like that, because we utilize this technology the way we do, we are still actually getting homes under contract. And then once you're under contract, then we're having the actual buyers do it, and we have a lot of safety protocols in place so that way at that point people can still do their transactions and they can do it in a safe and effective manner.
And then to that point too, we just had one of our agents. He closed the deal with a buyer who never saw the property.
Yeah,
Ryan. Shout
that's
out
right.
to Ryan.
Yes.
He sold a condo, and he did. Zoom
she wasn't
meetings.
even local.
No, out of state.
We specifically, a colleague of ours, his name is Ryan. He actually sold a house or condo, excuse me, to an out-of-state client. Sold. She never went to the property once. They did everything virtual and with all the advanced technologies we've been utilizing, and she has been thoroughly satisfied. And she said, "Yeah, it's closed." She loves her condo. She's actually been thanking us multiple of times just because of how easy we made that transaction for her and facilitated it for her.
So yes, it's a great time to sell.
So yeah, you can't. The masks are not going to deter aggressive buyers who want to be able to move right now. That's not going to be an issue for us. All right, so that was all in conclusion of step one of the things I wanted to discuss with you guys as far as timing goes. Everything is pointing in the positive for you. So the next thing that I wanted to discuss with you that's equally as important is like, how do you sell your home as is without leaving any money on the table? And so why don't we take a look at exactly how buyers are looking at homes right now, because I think this would be a really great, effective way to kind of give you an understanding. The way they do it, traditionally, well, 99% of the time right now, is that they're viewing all the pictures, video, and Matterport tours, which is that 3D tour I was mentioning earlier. They're going through, they're looking at all of those. They could be looking at one home or they could be looking at hundreds of homes. That's how they're starting their process. Then if they've done their selection process of elimination, they are going to drive by their top, 3 homes to see which ones really fit, because now they're going to be looking at community, neighborhood, does it fit what they want to do, things like that. And then at that point, they're going to be talking to their agent, going, okay, have your agent go through, do a Zoom walkthrough, is what we call it, Skype or even FaceTime, because a lot of us have, Apple iPhones. You can literally talk to your client. They could be at home in the comfort of their home. We'll have our gloves, our masks on, booties, things like that, and we'll walk through the home. We'll open up the doors for them, cabinets, maybe, turn on the faucet so they can hear it for themselves. They say, great, this is exactly what we want. And then schedule a controlled private showing with what's going on right now, or what I just mentioned earlier, actually writing up an offer with the term subject to inspection if it's accepted. So they'll do all the negotiations in terms of pricing, things like that. And then once all that's been settled, that's when they'll actually physically go see the home. And that's what we've really been seeing a lot of. And it's been making a lot of these transactions a lot easier, not only for the buyer, but for the peace of mind for sellers as well, because you're not getting a ton of people going through your home like willingly letting yourself be exposed to the different, keeping yourself healthy is priority number one. So by doing this, we're also keeping you safe with all of that. And so, so sorry. Yeah, excuse me for a second. I have to get some water. My voice was starting to crack for a minute. So much better. Okay, so by doing it this way, though, the whole point is, a buyer seeing your home, and when they're first looking at it, all they're thinking about is their wants, their needs, and they're looking at it very emotional state of mind. They're a buyer is no more in love with your home than when they're at that exact moment of writing the offer. And so once they're looking at it like that, they're imagining the furniture in there. They're imagining where they're going to do like barbecues and what Christmas is going to look like. I mean, they were extremely emotional, and you want to take advantage of that. After that point, once they go through and they switch over to, getting the inspections and viewing it like that, buyers instantly turn around and all of a sudden they're hypercritical. That one thing, there could have been like a tiny little crack in a tile on the floor, and all of a sudden they're freaking out, thinking the whole house is completely unsafe. You don't know how they would respond at that point in time, but you don't want someone to discover issues and then all of a sudden blow it out of proportion more than it can be. So our biggest advice, and something that we always tell people as a suggestion, again, we don't want you leaving any money on the table or for someone to blow up or over and exaggerate an issue, is to do a home inspection. You could do one privately yourself, and at that point you are going to see from their perspective exactly what items they could potentially see. A lot of them could be small, tiny little things. You can get them corrected for only a couple bucks, and all of a sudden now, again, you're not having to run into those issues later, at a later time, excuse me. And so by doing that, you're going to, save yourself a lot of time, hassle, and then again, no money's being left on the table because someone's overestimating a repair that goes against you. Okay, so that's basically how to sell it in as is condition, because you're not going to have any issues by the time you put it on the market and then put it, get it under contract. So the next part we are going to be looking at, which is part 3, ads your realtor should be running to sell your home that actually work. This is a soft spot for us, because this is something we had to learn the hard way with just experimenting and trial to really see what kind of marketing grabs people when it comes to advertising on social media, advertising on Google, advertising on YouTube. Advertising on print is extremely different than what you would do when you're on a social media website such as LinkedIn versus Facebook. And so how do you actually go through and test and study and really make sure that the person is actually posting something online to sell your house? Because when we talk about ads, what we're effectively talking about is not an agent that literally takes a picture of a house with their phone and saying, hey, here's a new listing that I'm marketing, come take a look, that's just going to their personal friends. That's not an ad. We're talking about targeted social media marketing. Now, this is one that we specifically ran. This is a picture. This is a live look at a house that's actually closing next week. We targeted it to potential buyers within a 25-mile radius of the home. What this looked like, see, this is the ad itself. See, looking for a new home. Your paradise awaits. amazing pool home, amenities, things like that. It had the online 3D tour, and we were specifically advertising that on social media. So if you clicked it, you were taken directly to the tour. This went through not only Facebook, but Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn. Yeah, for the most part. I'm trying to think of, am I missing any social media profiles?
If it's social media, it was there.
Yeah, basically, if it was there, people found it. And so when we did that, within 1 week, these are the real results that we ran into.
And keep in mind that this 17,049 is just Facebook.
Yes. So
and we include that only because Facebook does have the best analytics. But this does not include Instagram, Twitter,
LinkedIn,
YouTube,
stuff like that.
Everything.
That is
just specifically Facebook.
That is very true. What James is bringing up and emphasizing is that these results that I'm talking about are specific for Facebook only. We actually didn't pull all the analytics for all the different ones. Facebook has one of the better tracking systems for your advertising and things like that, which is why it was the easiest to pull. And so in only 1 week, so 7 days, what did this property really look like to your normal consumer? Well, it was put in front of 17,489 people. Out of those 17,000, 3,410, people actually clicked it, went to the unique website that I said had the 3D tour, things like that. So it was a completely custom design only for this property, which is a really nice thing to think about too, because guess what? We're only advertising this one home. There's a lot of websites out there you can go to and you'll be on one property, but guess what? Next to it, either on your right side, left side, or even on the bottom, you'll end up running into situations where it'll say, oh, if you like this home, look at similar homes. And that property, all of a sudden, that could have been the perfect home for them, just disappears. It gets lost in all the different advertising that you see. So this one, only one property, we were capturing their attention. Out of those 3,410 people, 167 actually commented or reacted to the ad itself. What we're talking about there is, there's the like button, there's the this is beautiful, check out that pool, where's it located? So we'll have those type of comments, we'll have direct DMs, we'll have, the hearts, questions, something that I didn't really pay attention to initially with that is, they'll actually tag one of their friends on it as well. So you'll see it'll be someone commented and it's just another name, and then their friend will actually jump on because now they're alerted that this house on their feed is there, and all of a sudden now they see the ad too, and that's not included in our 17,000. That's really nice too. And out of the 167 people that commented or reacted to the ad, we had 5 actual showing requests. These were serious buyers. We did again, 3D tour was done, virtual, all this other stuff. We were able to actually pre-qualify them, verify that, and vet them to make sure that they were serious. And then at that point, move them through the process, and we received 1 written offer. And like I said from the very beginning, this house is closing on Tuesday. And the sellers are extremely happy because we did all of that through COVID, through our initial stay-at-home order where people were not working. So that's why James kind of mentioned earlier, doing the whole facial mask things and stuff like that. We're not really concerned because there's a demand out there, and we fully intend to make sure that we're meeting those needs. So that's what an ad actually looks like.
I had a great question about social media marketing. Okay. Someone wants to know, if I wanted to list my home with you and have all of this, does it cost me extra for all of this social media marketing?
Okay, cool. So James just mentioned that someone asked, does doing all this extra targeted social media advertising cost extra compared to what others are doing? Brilliant question. I actually really appreciate it. And no, all of our services are all inclusive. And so when we sit down and talk and we actually break it all down for you, we can lay it there. But again, it's all included in our service packages for you. So appreciate the question. Thank you very much.
That was from Catherine.
Oh, okay. Hi, Catherine. Thanks for joining us. All right, so targeted social media, and that's how we do. Now, the final point that I wanted to bring up today, thank you so much for hanging out with me so far, is understanding that there are 3 types of buyers that you're going to be running into that are active in today's market, and more importantly, knowing how to negotiate with them. This is a fun one. I personally enjoy the negotiation process, which is probably why I'm doing this as a career. But we want to give you an idea too, and heads up that, yeah, there's definitely different types, and you have to change and adapt your style to make sure that you're getting what you need out of the negotiations. Number one, we call them the expressive. Now, these are the people, when they go through kind of like what their name insinuates, that they love everything. They are overly animated. They're looking at things, they're imagining their furniture there, they're imagining what their kids are going to look like, how they're going to design bedrooms, what kind of paint they're going to put on the walls, what their next party is going to look like there, what they're going to need there. I mean, they're extremely visual. And they just, that's it, they're looking at it going, I'm going to do this, this is where my prop pot's going. I'm going to have this dining room table right there. I may need new chairs though, because I want this to look like that. And like, that's how they see it and envision it. It's really great. And it's a lot of fun working with them too, because they're the ones that get very emotional. So you can, again, remember how I was talking about making emotional decisions and how they're in love with your home. Yeah, that's a good thing for you at this point with an expressive. Now, the second type of person that you're going to be running into, we call the analytical one. Just as their name insinuates, this is the person that's all about the numbers. They only want to know, what's it cost per square foot? What systems were updated? How old's the roof? What kind of insulation do you have in your attic? Has there been pest control treatments? I mean, they're just about the facts and what that looks like. And we see very oftentimes too, with couples, if you have them together, you'll have one that's expressive and one that's analytical, and you'll be getting both questions. So just being able to adapt and make sure you're addressing the person that you're dealing with to their style makes them feel comfortable, makes them feel like, you're someone trustworthy that they're going to want to work with. And so, yeah, it's all about numbers for them. They're very emotionalist, and then they want to make sure that it's about, it fits their parameters and what they were looking to do. And then the third person that you'll run across right now, you may have already known and dealt with this before. Simple way we call them, the bottom feeders. They don't care anything about the home. They don't care about how nicely you take care of it, how well it's been taken care of. All they want is a steal. That's the best way to describe it, because they don't want anything to do with it unless they know they're getting a good deal and what their bottom line is. That's pretty much self-explanatory. When you run into them, you'll know what to do or how to handle them at that point. But yeah, now not to get yourself beat up or overworked when you're dealing with a bottom feeder, because it's not about you, it's not about your home, it's all about them. So you can move on, find someone else who would want your home the way you appreciate your home. And those are the three types of buyers that you're more than likely going to experience while we're going through all of this stuff. All right, so guess what? That was step number 4.
Oh, got a question.
Sure.
How do you deal with a monster?
The best thing is not to waste your time trying to go over all the facts and figures and how amazing you've been keeping up your home, because it's a waste of your breath. They don't want anything to do with that. The only thing they care about is numbers. So be prepared to say whatever number. I almost feel like, picture going to a garage sale or a flea market and everything where you're going to get a haggle, and you're going to be haggling. Always have a number and know that whatever number you say, they're going to just destroy. They're going to want to go lower than that. They're never going to just agree with your number, regardless of how amazing your house is. So just assume that if you have a number in your head, up it. Okay, come up with a higher number, so that way when they drop, it's more in line with what you were looking at coming up with anyway. And so if you have any problems with that, if that's something that you're really not feeling comfortable with, that's why there's people like me here. James, we mentioned Ryan as well, because this is what we do for a living. So we're prepared to do it, and we're not going to get our feelings hurt when someone says something stupid to us. So great question. I really appreciate it. Oh my gosh. I don't think I actually mentioned the question. Hopefully you heard what James said, but he said, how do you deal with a bottom feeder? And so that was kind of my answer to that one for you.
And that was Larry from Newport Richie.
Oh my gosh. Hi, Larry. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. Okay. So if you guys are on here for a reason. The whole point of this was to say, you plan on selling your house in the next 6 months, what to look for, how to start preparing for it. So give yourself the time. Don't start cramming. Don't wait until the last minute to really get this stuff going on. What you start doing, do the deep clean. Start decluttering your home. That means if you have things in storage, or you haven't gone through like your closet in 17 years, this is probably a great time to start going through that, eliminating the things that you're not going to want to move, and clean it up, things like that. Your walls could always use a fresh coat of paint if it's more than like a year or two old, just because of normal wear and tear. Again, we're trying to eliminate a buyer coming through your home and then offering suggestions or kind of dinging you again on your money, because that's your equity, because they see something that's lightly scratched or mismanaged. And of course, lighten things up. Make sure your light bulbs are all fresh, that they're all working. That's a good one. The curtains, you want to make sure that you don't have layers of dust on them, lampshades, things like that. Or if you think they're a little too dark, you can always brighten them up. This one is kind of an easy one too. Your yard needs some loving. If you've been neglecting it, it has been raining a lot. Actually, right now we've gone through a few days without rain and stuff like that, so it may not be as crazy as our normal Florida summers are. But definitely tidy it up, get things kind of in order where you just feel really proud about what you're showing off and giving it to the world. So definitely scrub off your patio furniture or pressure wash your driveway, little things like that, and it is going to make a dramatic difference, to how at the end of the day what you net at the end, at the closing table. So those are definitely things. If you want more specific details on like things, or if you need help with any of that, again, you can always reach out to myself. You can reach out to James. We'd be more than happy to really walk you through this. But this is kind of like a top 4 list of like little things to do to start getting yourself prepared and what kind of timelines you're looking at. And because I wanted to make sure and I delivered and gave you guys everything you wanted, thank you again so much for being on here with us. I wanted to actually throw in a bonus topic for you. See, what does it really look like? Because now we're going through the face mask. Someone already mentioned what we're going through with all of that and what it looks like, and how people are like buying houses, which again, we're going to refresh. Remember how we said buyers are looking at houses? Well, same thing right now. What does it look like? Well, guess what? You're going to see online presence is vital. It's no longer a kind of or sort of, or maybe you can get away with selling your house without an online presence, because 99% of people are going to be online. They have free time, they have computers and internet access, or even their phones. You have to make sure even the stuff you're putting out there online is adaptable to the mobile. So that way they're seeing everything and it's formatting and I forgot what they called it, adaptive, a mobile response, something like that. But basically, yeah, I'm not the techie person in terms of like building that stuff out, but I do know that when someone's looking at your pictures online, they want to make sure it actually fits the screen the right way, just as when you're looking on your desktop.
Augmented reality.
Oh, augmented reality? No, I wasn't talking about that.
Oh.
That is something potentially too.
Sorry.
So that's something that they're doing. You want to make sure your house looks amazing online. This also means using the professional photographer like we do, having the 3D tours. You want to take those extra steps and time and effort, because at the end of the day, it's going to make your pocketbook, or your pockets fatter with money. That's what you want. This is your home. Get it done. The second thing that buyers are doing right now, of course, is they're driving by, which is why I mentioned making sure your, curb appeal spruced up the right way. You don't have weird grease stains in your driveway. You want them to look at your house and be like, that's an amazing house. That's where I want to live. And then, of course, virtually touring the home through Zoom and FaceTime. That's another thing that we're doing because, it's for your safety and health, just as well as for the buyer's convenience factor. Then, of course, if it's still in contention for the buyers, they will actually do the in-person tour at that point in time. And again, something we utilize, we've been doing ever since the beginning of this starting, and we have no intentions of stopping now, is utilizing all the precautionary guidelines that were given to us, meaning we're wearing gloves, we have masks, we'll have like those little weird like fishnet shoe booties available for our clients and ourselves. And of course, we have gallons and gallons of hand sanitizer available, so that way, even before we enter home, we get all sprayed down, make sure everybody's good that way. And then once we leave the home, same thing. We go through all of that stuff. Now, with all of that, I definitely appreciate it. So one of the things I wanted to see is, if you're like, okay, you gave me all this information and I really do hope that you found it useful, what should you be doing now? And First off, I hope you and your loved one should always be priority number one in terms of your safe and health. So you never want to feel like this is something that's putting you at risk. And let me see if I can do this because I'm trying to figure out how to minimize my mirroring thing now. Oh, here we go. Hey, and we're back because that's basically it right now. So, besides making sure your health and safety aren't being, unduly exposed, things like that, if you really are thinking of selling your home in the next 90 days, let us sit down and strategize to really go over what those steps are specifically for you. This was definitely a more general overview for just our marketing in general. But if that's something you're seriously thinking about doing in the next 90 days, then we should definitely sit down to make sure that we are coming in there and creating a strategy specific for you. So I hope you found this useful. Thank you again so much for staying in tune. I hope the charts weren't too boring for you. Again, I tried to really make it short and concise in terms of just looking at the data and things like that. So I'm going to open it up right now because, as we promised, there is going to be Q&A, not only from when I was going through it, but if anyone else has anything else they want to bring up. So I'll zip it for a minute.
We do have a couple questions.
Yeah.
You can repeat them. So we have Maria from Trinity.
Okay.
Maria from Trinity asked a similar question from earlier, but it's still a good question that we can reemphasize, and that is, I do need to sell my home, but I'm not in a rush. Should I wait until all of this blows over?
Okay. So Maria, thank you for joining us from Trinity. And her question was, she's not in a rush, but she definitely does want to sell her home. So should she kind of wait for all of this to blow over? That kind of goes back into point one that we brought up, was about timing the sale of your home. Everything right now is pointing into an extremely positive environment, which means this isn't going to be hidden news. Eventually, at some point, it's going to get out there. News is going to be spreading that, hey, it's good, the market's healthy, people aren't backing down. To give you an idea, specifically, like, okay, unemployment's been a huge thing all over just the media in general, and how, especially now with COVID kind of resurging, like what's happening there. I've definitely heard some things about how the new unemployment filings have been going, through the roof again, millions upon millions weekly. But just give you an idea, like as things are getting restructured with COVID and everything like that, the bounce back from the economic standpoint and like employment, we had, I believe it was the economic gain. So the amount of people able to gain employment again was 2.5 million jobs just in the month of May while we were bouncing through this. So that really gives you a good idea of how strong our market is, but also how comfortable people are and how quickly these things are going to come out of it. And May was by far, they said, just to give you an idea, the largest, biggest 1 month job search in US history since 1939. So this, us bouncing through COVID and coming out of it, is going to happen extremely quickly. And do you want to be the person who is one of the early adopters, because usually the early adopters are the ones that always get the full advantage of it, versus the people that start waiting to the end, and then more and more people are going to say, oh wait, it's a great time, let's get our house on the market, let's get our house on the market. And what you're going to start seeing is an equalizing out of the amount of people wanting to buy homes, and all of a sudden all the people that want to sell their homes are going to start jumping on, going, hey, let's list, it's a great time, it's a great time. And you're going to lose the advantage of having limited inventory. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, basically, right now, it's better in your advantage in terms of an equity position, being able to demand and command a higher sale price versus waiting when then more people come on the market. So,
All right.
thanks, Maria.
Yep, we got a couple more questions here. We got William. He is from Spring Hill. And William says that he would love to sell his home and upgrade to a larger home, but he's been searching online on Zillow and Trulia, and he's afraid that there's nothing for him out there. Will there be more inventory coming soon?
Ooh, this is a really good one. So, William, thank you for joining us. His question was, he wants to upgrade. He wants a bigger house. And gotta say, that's not the first time I've heard that recently. That stay-at-home order and being able to teach your kids at home definitely made a lot of people rethink their living circumstances. And a lot of people are like, yeah, my house isn't big enough. I need more space. So, William, you're not alone on that one. Now, the question himself was actually, he's going online because he obviously needs a place to go to when he sells his home, and he's not seeing a lot of inventory on the market. So he's really concerned about that. Now, there's a couple of options that we have that we can do, and it's really more personal to you at this point, William. There's two things. One, we definitely want to take advantage of being able to sell, with the limited inventory to really command a great price. So being able to put your home on the market and then, get it under contract. One of the things we can actually negotiate in the terms for you is being able to actually have a window of opportunity where you are able to review homes and get something that you want to move into. And if something happens where that home doesn't exist, you can actually cancel the contract. So you're not losing the opportunity to take advantage of the market for your home right now. And then you get to sell or buy, excuse me, in the time that you want and see what's available. But another thing that we actually do a lot of is, again, there are a considerable amount of people who just aren't comfortable with listing their house right now. And it could be for health reasons, things like that. There's nothing absolutely wrong with it. But we've gotten pretty much on a daily basis, we have information and people that come to us and say, look, if I can get that, I will sell my house. This is what we're looking for. Let us know when you have a buyer. And that actually has been happening a lot more right now. Wouldn't you say, James? If you have a buyer, bring them to me and we'll sell our house. Yeah. And it's just more of that movement, and it's really about having an aggressive agent just knowing what's happening in the market and really having those kind of connections. So you have one or two options right there, being able to get your home sold and move into something even if you don't see that inventory right now online. There's a lot of ways to go through that. Excuse me. And of course, one of the other big things, way back when I was talking about step one, or point one, new construction is a huge advantage for you right now. They're not slowing down on their building and everything, and so being able to even look at that as an option for you too, because we can get everything coordinated and kind of matched up with your timelines for that opportunity as well. So really, there's three different options for you. Putting your house on the market, putting in a contingency for you to be able to find a house once you're under contract. So you're taking advantage of both sides. You have the opportunity. We have like people that, from our personal experience, that are willing to sell. They just, said, give us a buyer and we'll make it happen. Or three, new construction homes, because there's a lot of demand there and they're not slowing down on their building out their construction. So hope that helps, William. If you want more detailed questions, of course, you can just, reach out to us directly. Any other questions?
Yeah, one more.
Okay, one more.
This is John. John is from Land O'Lakes. John wants to know, he's an investor, and he wants to know what your opinion is on the world of investing, both renting and flipping in this current market.
Ooh, John from Land O'Lakes, welcome and thanks for sharing. Okay, so from an investing standpoint, his question was, how does this look like in terms of flipping homes, and what does it look like for renting? So I'm guessing when you say by renting, like landlording. Okay, yeah. So being a landlord.
He actually said holding.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I was trying to make it easier for the people at home who don't have that investing experience.
Gotcha. Okay, so he actually said holding, so thank you so much. And that specifically means like being able to buy a house right now and then rent it out to tenants, so that way you're getting the passive income for a long period of time, versus just the original term I said was flipping, where you buy something now, you fix it up, and then you turn around and sell it rather quickly. Those shows are extremely popular by now. You've probably seen a few of them on HGTV. There's quite a few of them too, actually. So in terms of the market and what that looks like, again, inventory is tight overall, which would be a huge advantage for you in terms of buying something, making it more of a fixing up the cosmetic or any severe issues, so that way it becomes a home that's available to your standard buyer who's looking to move into it. So that's a huge positive for you. It's actually been a while since we had that kind of opportunity available for us, because before, market sold, the market had a good, healthy amount of inventory. Buyers had a lot of choices. Right now, there's limited inventory, which means you being able to put a home that is actually ready for a person to actually move into, and we call that, move-in ready home. So, it's great. That's going to be huge in your favor. Now, in terms of landlording, you're running into the same thing. You're here in Land O'Lakes, so you're probably, anytime you're driving around between 41, around 54, things like that, you've probably seen a lot of apartment buildings being built in construction. That's a very good, healthy sign, because for that many companies to be building, they're showing a huge demand for rental properties, and there's not enough out there. So again, if you're looking at doing a buy and hold strategy where you become a landlord and have that passive monthly income going over, just take a look around and what's happening. Because for these big companies to be investing and putting in millions of dollars in terms of infrastructure, laying out these homes and house apartment complexes, things like that, that's a good green light for you too on that side of things.
Just a fun fact, you can share this again. I was told today that 3 to 1,500 square foot homes with no pool in Spring Hill are renting for 1,500, 1,600.
Wow, really?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
That's how little rental inventory.
Yeah, there's so little inventory. So what James just brought up was that, to give you an idea, in Spring Hill for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home around, how many square foot? Yeah, 1,500
No
square feet with no pool. Okay, so just your standard home and everything like that. They're renting those in Spring Hill for between $1,500 to $1,600. I mean, that's huge. Spring Hill used to be an area where people weren't really looking for rentals before. So to see it going that way and really aggressively priced that way, again, that's a green light. So yeah.
You can get a mortgage for
Go through.
5% down for the same price.
Oh, I got it. I know, isn't that great? James was just mentioning that you can get a mortgage on a $275,000 house for 3% interest right now, and 5% down, and you're same thing. So it's a healthy market right now. So I hope that things for rentals and stuff like that for you. So if you're looking to take advantage, I mean, that works out 2 ways for you. Being able to take advantage of like the lower interest rates for the mortgage for yourself, and then have that long-term equity be built up for you. And then again, just the fact that there's that kind of demand out there. So, okay, I think, are there any more questions?
No, that was the last one for now.
Okay.
Everything else we pretty much answered. I'll take care.
Well, again, thank you so much. James just said that was it for questions. Yeah, and it is 7:30, and again, thank you so much for just giving us this time. I hope you found this informative and useful, so that way you guys can make a plan for yourselves. And again, it's based on actual data. It's based on facts. It's not based on sensational headlines or emotions, because that is not what you are looking for when it comes to dealing with the largest asset that you own. So thank you for being on here. Thank you for giving me an hour of your time today. And again, if you have any other questions or anything else, feel free to reach out to us. All of our contact details are in the emails you got. And just thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Bye, guys.
Bye.